Hi, I'm Karla Marie Sweet, and you are listening to Season 2 of the PlayMakers Podcast, a podcast by Box of Tricks Theatre Company that is all about platforming creative conversations with theatre makers from all parts of the industry. This episode's guest is the brilliant Stefanie Reynolds. Born and raised in Manchester, Stefanie is a real local talent. We first met when we were paired together for a Box of Tricks scheme called Pen Pals, where we both had the opportunity to support each other in writing the first draft of a script.
And we've been friends ever since.
We have, for better or worse. Elements of Steph's script have bled into a new play called Unhinged, which will have a full showing at home at the end of this month. Steph's play Denisha premiered at the Lowry on the 23rd of October last year before going on a regional tour. The play was created while Stefanie was on the Playbox attachment here at Box of Tricks. Reviews Hub gave the play 4 stars and called it exuberant, joyful and life-affirming, and I have to agree.
That's good.
Welcome to the show, Steph.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. As with all episodes of the PlayMakers Podcast, this conversation is pretty raw, uncut and unfiltered. So expect to hear that odd swear word that hasn't been beeped and some discussions around sensitive topics and possibly some cries for help from Steph. Maybe a few screams. Maybe
I do, yeah. One of my
songs.
tips is I do have a few screams, but I will try and keep them at a minimum.
We also like to start each episode of the podcast with a little bit of audio description for those who are visually impaired or those who are listening the traditional way via the audio version of the podcast. So I'll start. I am a mixed race woman with curly-ish, wavy-ish, dark brown hair. I'm wearing red lipstick, a black chunky cardigan, big gold hoop earrings, and a bit of Box of Tricks merchandise, which I hope you can see. This is the Blood Beats t-shirt, which is our LGBTQ plus group. And it's got a lovely quote from James Baldwin on it that says, "You have to go the way your blood beats." I'm wearing green shorts and I'm wearing black Doc Martens. Over to you, Steph.
Fabulous. I'm a mixed race baby girl. She, her pronouns. I'm wearing a leopard print polo neck. With my big baggy frog t-shirt, 'cause I absolutely adore frogs. I've got a dress on underneath that. I've got my woolly tights on and my black knee-length leather boots because I never wear them, so I thought, let me wear them today.
I love the frog. Very underrated animal. And I
frogs.
love the animal print shirt underneath as well.
Thank you very much.
David Attenborough at Make It Fashion.
Yes. Yeah.
I should also clarify that she isn't actually a baby girl. She's a grown
woman.
So I want to jump straight in by starting at the beginning of your theatre making journey.
Great.
And asking you the same question that I ask the majority of people who get on this podcast, which is, why theatre?
Great question. Why theatre? I adore theatre. I think it's so raw and exciting. It's live. It's happening right in front of you. I think you never forget a show that you saw and that inspired you and moved you. Like, I mean, I can only speak for myself. Like, when I've been a part of a theatre show in the audience and I'm watching an actor work really hard on stage, and it just changes me, and I just find it's the most exciting medium because it's live, and once you see it, you might never see it again. It's not happening ever again. I just think it's really exciting.
Yeah. It's live and it's in front of you.
Yeah.
And there's no escape.
And
unless you want to walk out at half time.
Yeah, it's like you can see it happening in front. Yeah, unless you want to walk out. I just think it's like, it's so daring and brave. Like it's so bold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was there a point earlier on in your life where you saw something or something happened that made you think, that's it, theatre, that's the thing for me, that's what I'm going to spend the rest of my life doing?
Yeah, I think when I was younger, I just always thought I was going to be an actor. I thought that was my journey. And so I researched the steps of that, of like, okay, so, you do performing arts at college, you go to drama school, you graduate, you get an agent, you get acting. I just thought that was my journey. because I didn't have the vocabulary for a playwright. I didn't even know what that was. I didn't think that was something that I could do. And then it wasn't until on my third year at drama school that you got the opportunity to write and direct as well as act. And I really enjoyed writing. I just thought it was so much fun. I was writing like comedy sketches. And also by that point, my stage fright and anxiety had got so bad that I just lost a lot. It was so ironic. It's like I went to drama school and left less confident.
I think a lot of people have that experience.
It really stripped me for like countless reasons that I could go on about. But one of the good things about it was that, I had an opportunity to write and I loved it. Yeah.
But you still perform, don't you? You're actually performing Unhinged.
This is my first time to the stage in 6 years.
Wow.
So yeah, I'm terrified, but excited. And yeah, that's it. I'm terrified and excited.
Have you performed much of your own work before?
Good question. So I took my first play, Scribbles, to Edinburgh Fringe Festival, and I performed in that. It was a trio. So I played the main character, and then there were like 2 actors that played all the different characters within her world.
Love that.
And that was a really fun experience. And then after that, I stopped acting. I went to Tamasha Playwrights and wrote my first proper full-length play, and I just stepped away, and I was really okay with it as well. Like I felt self-assured and confident in my ability as a writer. I didn't yearn to act or perform until I started writing Unhinged in 2024. I was like, I have to play Hazel.
Yeah.
In fact, I could actually, my friend who's directing it, Erin, was like, you have to play it like that. Yeah, she said you have to do this.
And how's it feeling?
Terrifying, Karla. I'm so scared. Every time I think about it, my heart starts racing and my legs turn to jelly.
Wow. But that's thinking about the actual performance, right? So, but your nerves that you're feeling seem to be more to do with the actual performance. How's the rehearsal feeling?
So the rehearsals, we have not had as much time on this play. In 2024, we had its first scratch, and that was 20 minutes, and we had 1 weekend to rehearse that.
Wow.
And my director doesn't live in Manchester as well, so she couldn't, it's not like we could have met up in our own time. So I've had that, and then I've had a 1 week R&D at home in July 2024. So there's like these huge gaps in between.
Yeah.
And now we've got 2 weeks to rehearse the full length thing. You know, we've only ever got up to about 20-25 minutes. So it's a big challenge.
Yeah.
But I'm confident in myself. I know I can do this.
Well, yeah. I mean, you definitely can do this because you've been to drama school, and so that is still in there somewhere, all of those experiences that you had while you were training. You've also led a fringe show, which is, you know, no mean feat. You know, a lot of listeners might not know that the majority of fringe shows run for the entire month.
Absolutely.
Every day you get 1 day off, and you know, you're performing in front of audiences that can be 2 people or 200 people. You don't know how many people are going to show up on any given day. And so all of that, I think, will add up to...
It's true, and I'm excited because it's like, this show deserves an audience. Like, it's been Erin and I for so long making this together. And, you know, we've had the Scratch, which had a small audience, and then we did an R&D sharing where we invited industry professionals. But I'm excited for my friends to see it. I'm excited for my family to see it. Like, I've met friends since moving back to Manchester in 2019 who've only known me, like you, who've only known me as a writer. So I'm really excited for people to see me perform. I am really excited.
Yeah. And this is all happening so soon after Denisha as well. I mean, it's literally straight after Denisha.
It is.
Have you had time to really process the Denisha experience before jumping into Unhinged?
I mean, it was just such a whirlwind experience. I guess maybe I haven't yet, have I? Because now I'm just like,
well, maybe we do this now. Maybe this is where we process Denisha.
Because all I've been thinking about, because Unhinged isn't, well, at the time of recording, has not been finished. I've not finished writing this play. So the moment Denisha was over, I was like, I need to write Unhinged.
Yeah. I know this experience. I understand this experience because I've had this experience, not with plays, with books, but it's a weird experience, because then you get people kind of saying to you, oh, how do you feel about this play that you've just done? And you're like, I don't know, because I'm busy writing the next one.
And also, like, when you've got ADHD anyway, or at least I'll speak from my perspective, I am always in the future.
Same.
I'm always thinking about the next thing. So even when Denisha was happening, I was thinking about Unhinged. It's true.
I very much relate to that. I usually have about kind of 3, 4, 5 plates spinning at once. And a lot of the time that means that before one project has even finished, I have emotionally moved on from it. And so, it's very strange. I think it makes us a lot more productive, but it also means that
you don't get time to, like, stop and like give yourself a pat on the back and like take in what's actually happening, because I'm like, next.
Exactly. And you haven't even read the reviews for Denisha, have you?
Not one
and that's
single
a decision
one.
that you have made.
Can't do it. Too scared. Too afraid.
Too afraid.
Too
afraid that there'll be something bad in there. Okay.
It'll crush me.
Do you not feel afraid that you might miss out on the good things that people have had to say?
It's true.
Because of that. Maybe, and there are so many good things, because I have read the reviews.
Thank you. I'm just like, I don't know, just want my work to speak for itself, and just, and like as I was saying before, when we took Denisha to some colleges and schools, and young mixed race girls came up to me and said they felt seen, I was like, review done, like that's all I wanted. Or like when friends and family came and said how much they loved it, and also like Denisha was so special and important, because I've been doing this for a really long time, and I've not been like, that was a huge deal for me. And like family and friends, they're always like, oh, we know that you do this, that kind of thing, like you're writing, but they'd never seen it, so they didn't even know my capability of, or like my talent, or what it is that I actually do. So that was like a review in itself of like, finally, like people can take me seriously and can see what it is that I'm going on and on about, and this thing that I've been chasing for like 6 years.
I love that. So you're writing it for them, really?
Yeah, absolutely. And for just, I'm always writing for my community, and I'm always trying to platform marginalised communities. That's always at the forefront of what I want to do, for sure. Yeah.
And I remember you saying something kind of before, maybe at the beginning of the run or before the run had started, where you were kind of talking about how life-changing it would have been for you if you'd have been a student at one of the schools.
Oh my God, can you imagine?
It would have, I felt the same way. Like, absolutely. There was nothing like that for me when I was a kid.
Exactly. So when we were taking it to the colleges and the schools, I was just like, dream made, 100%.
I can definitely think of things that I watched as a kid that not necessarily spoke to my experience, but where I saw people who looked like me on screen or on stage, and thought, like maybe the people who wrote that are like me, and then the discovery that they actually weren't at all like me, because they were white and middle class and tra-la-la. And so the discovery that not only is there kind of a mixed race girl on stage, but that the person who wrote it is a mixed race woman must have been so incredible for so many of those. Talk a little bit more about the interactions that you had with the young people who saw this show.
Yeah, so I've just, a few people said to me just how they felt seen, how they really identified with Denisha, and, not feeling like they fit in, not understanding what microaggressions are, because me too, when I was in college, I didn't have that vocabulary. No. I didn't, it's an icky feeling, and that you feel uncomfortable, but you don't really know why, and everyone's just said it, and I experienced this a lot at drama school, hence the lack of confidence by the time. Everyone just says it's a joke, so you're the one with the chip on the shoulder if you're not laughing at the joke, even though the joke is at your expense and your identity that you can't change. And so, like, even the stuff like with Denisha, like her friends Lucy and Bex kind of making the comments about, all of the microaggressions that they said, I think it was like a bit of a penny drop for some of the younger audiences of like, that isn't okay. That happens to me too. I don't like that either. Oh, maybe I should like diversify my friends and try and be around people who look like me and understand me and yearn for that connection.
That is such a powerful thing. Such a powerful gift to give to a young person. It really is.
Thank you.
So you said earlier, I've been doing this for a long time.
Yes.
Now, when you say I've been doing this for a long time, are you talking specifically about Denisha or playwriting
in general, yeah, because I got into Tamasha in 2017 or 2018 and wrote my first full-length play. That Time We Got High, which is, I love that play.
What's that play about? I wonder. I mean, maybe it's what it says on the can.
That Time We Got High. That play is about a girl who returns to Manchester for her mother's funeral and is reunited with her estranged family. Yeah, and that play has really really helped me get into the next room or the next scheme or the next stage, but it's yet to be staged. It's never been staged. That play got me onto the Playbox scheme for Box of Tricks.
Wow, okay.
Yeah. And then I wrote Denisha in 2021. Again, it's like, you know what it's like as a playwright. There's so much that you just have to, there's so much that you're not in control of. Because if it's like, it's up to me, it's like, right, let's stage That Time We Got High, then we do Denisha.
Yeah.
I'm not in control of any of that. And it's so frustrating.
It is. That's why I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Anymore. How did you get your play to the Fringe? Because that's a classic example of a macrocosm, maybe even. I was going to say microcosm, but it's so huge these days. Where a lot of people are either paying to work or working for free or, you know, maybe getting funding from somewhere. You know, you've got all of these plays that are being made with a tin can and a piece of string and a little bit of wood, and then these other plays that are huge and showy and have loads of money behind them. What was your experience of being in that world?
We had a fundraiser.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, so we crowdfunded for that show.
And that was a very successful fundraiser. Did it cover everything?
God, I've got such a bad memory. I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a very good memory for trauma, and I remember fundraising was very traumatic when I was doing it for my play.
Yeah, I think so. I remember performing to nobody. Like there was more than one night where we would have no one or three people, and those three people regretted it the moment the play started.
Oh,
like you could just see it on their faces. They were not up for this like absurd abstract comedy that these three people were presenting to them, and they just wanted to leave, but they couldn't. I remember that, but I can't. And I remember like us all like sharing one bedroom and sleeping on the floor, classic Fringe stuff, you know, just not really.
I slept in a cupboard. Like a literal cupboard. Like people think I'm being hyperbolic when I'm saying that, but no, like it was an actual cupboard.
Yeah.
Not like a room that's just small, like an actual cupboard on the floor. I didn't even have a duvet for the first night.
And you just like take it. You're just like, well, this is Fringe.
This
You're
is
just like,
what it's
and
like.
You have no idea that like, no, not everyone actually lives like that at Fringe. Some people have everything paid for. They have their own room. They have their own space. They don't have to flyer. Like that's what else we had to do. We'd spend all day flyering and then go and perform to three people. And we'd be outside in the rain as well. It's like, this is such a great experience. I'm so happy to be here.
It's grim, isn't it? And then everyone gets ill at
so
some point.
Grim, and you're just exhausted, and then what an experience.
And I feel like everybody fights so hard to be there. Like you know, you invest so much of your personal funding, so much of your time, so much of your energy. You know, you go through so much to get there with this hope of like, you know, you want to achieve something by the end of it. And a lot, you know, for a lot of people it's like, oh, I want to create like this serious step change in my career, and I believe that there's a chance that off the back of the Fringe somebody's going to pick up my show and it'll get a transfer, or you know, somebody's going to pick up my show and it help me develop it into a TV show, or something will happen where I have a tangible track record of my work for maybe the first time ever. And then you get there and it's like, I'm ill, I'm sleeping in a cupboard, there's rats in my building, I have no money even for food, I'm going to have to walk all the way back to Leith because I don't really have money for the bus either, and there's food or the bus. Everybody around me is pissed. Why are people so drunk all the time? What is happening? I'm flying in the cold. Like, I hate one of my castmates.
No one's came to see it. Great.
So what did you get out of that experience? Was there anything positive that you got out of that experience?
Oh, I mean, of course, like, like how cool and rock and roll to just do that.
To
like
live like
everything that you
that for a
just
while.
listed, like fucking yeah.
Who wouldn't want to
Like
do that?
hello, like that's fucking cool. And it was a fun experience, and yeah, character building.
Nothing else. Yeah, because with all those other barriers in life, we really needed our characters to be
Another
built by another traumatic experience, didn't we? I always feel like with the Fringe, you kind of go up there hoping for something, and you almost never get what you're hoping for, but you do get something else.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what happened for me. Like, there was a lot I got out of the Fringe, but it wasn't what I expected or wanted, you know. And I think a lot of other people have that experience as well. Like, you know, there's people who go up there wanting standing ovations and 5-star reviews and, you know, transfer, and they come back with a girlfriend. None of those other things, but I have a girlfriend now. Or like in my case, like I was hoping for a lot of those things, and I came back with like loads of requests to speak at environmental conferences because my play was like a kind of a cli-fi play before writing about, you know, climate change and how it was going to affect us in the future was really fashionable. So that's kind of what it did for me, and it was a really interesting experience. What did you do after the Fringe? How did things take shape after that?
So I think I went back to London where I was living, and I think that's when I applied for Tamasha Playwrights.
Ah, okay,
and that's
so that
when
was
I got
before
into that.
Tamasha.
Yeah.
Wow. So did you do that pretty much straight out of drama school?
Oh my God, sorry. Yeah, so I wrote that play at drama school. I totally forgot to say that. Yeah, so I wrote Scribbles in my last year at East 15. Yeah, oh my God, yeah, and we performed it for like a showcase at drama school, and then we loved it, and we were like, we've got to take this to Fringe, and you know, we were really like naive and optimistic, like this is going to be great, and it was, but it was also character building, as I said. So,
yeah. So then you applied for Tamasha.
Then I got into Tamasha.
You still wanted to
and
do it.
Funnily enough, because I was the only person of colour on my course at East 15, which was great. Love that for me. Really helped with the confidence.
I was the only person of black heritage.
Identity crisis, number 2.
There were 2 South Asians. We clung together like human life rafts. But I was the only person of black heritage on my course, and my course had 22 people on it, which is wild.
It's shocking.
It's shocking.
So then when I got into... So everything that I was writing, obviously, was for me and my... course mates, who everyone else is white. So I didn't even realise how much my writing changed till I got into Tamasha. The moment I was around black and brown people, that time we got high poured out of me.
Wow.
My language came back, the accents, my community, people who look like me, everything poured out of me that I had never been able to do at East 15.
That's so interesting.
Because then it's like, oh my God, I can start daydreaming and writing for me again. Because obviously I was just aware, like, wait, but if I write, like, who's going to perform? There's no one who's going to perform it besides me.
Yeah, we're going to have white actors trying to perform black roles. And
no, thank you. Obviously
awkward.
that wasn't an option, so yeah, it just wasn't. And again, that was just a subconscious thing of like, I'm like coming back. So it honestly like has taken me this long to get back to who I am and my roots and stuff by just doing all of the unwork and unlearning that I did at drama school of like even my accent, like my friends take the mick out of me because they say I don't sound Mancunian anymore, which really upsets me. And they're like, oh, you sound so posh. And I'm like, it's so frustrating because when I was at drama school, I was a working class, only black one, and I stood out and now came home and it's like people think I'm not even from here. Like people are really surprised that I'm a Mancunian.
I really identify with that
experience. It's so frustrating.
Yeah. Oh, you've been in London. Oh, you're posh now.
Yeah, it's like you really lose yourself and you have to find yourself again.
Yeah, and I think there's definitely something. I was listening to something last night about, and it was in reference to Substack actually, not playwriting or writing for screen or anything like that at all, but how people invariably, even if they fight it, end up sort of writing for the space that they are in.
Yeah, of course.
And the audience that they have
and
within
that's being
space.
A good writer anyway. Like you should, and that's another thing I knew that like not only are my actors going to be white and middle class, my audience is going to be too. So I was just subconsciously just like making jokes and just making things that like they will understand. And then when I was in Tamasha, I was like, oh my God, I can do whatever I want, and I can write about Manchester and like being working class, and like, you know, I can write about this Jamaican grandma and all of these things, and it just came back.
Especially when you're writing comedy, because how can you not write for your audience when you're writing comedy? Because if they don't laugh, this has flopped.
Yeah.
So then you're like trying to kind of make you'll basically just end up doing this big long tap dance for Whitey, which is like really soul destroying, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And yeah, I can imagine it would take a lot to get back from that.
Yeah.
But I also feel like now you're talking about this, I feel like some of those themes have come through quite strongly in Denisha.
Interesting. Tell me more.
In the sense that Denisha...
I love when people find themes that you've not even...
thought about.
Yeah, that's so exciting to me. Go on.
Denisha is a mixed race girl who is living in a very white world and feeling really lost, and like she really stands out, and all she wants to do is perform and be surrounded by people who get her to the point where she invents.
I was not getting that, guys. That is so funny.
The therapy bill will be in the post.
Oh my God.
But to the point where she invents imaginary black friends to perform with her because she is that devoid of peers.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Who are like her.
That's incredible.
Yeah. And by the end of it, she comes back around to herself and figures out who she is and starts living authentically as a result of that. So now that we're talking about Denisha, let's talk a little bit more about Denisha's journey, because you said you started writing in 2021.
2021. 2, 3, 4. Yeah, it was after COVID, wasn't it? So 2021 I got on the Playbox attachment scheme.
And that was post Pen Pals, wasn't it? Because we were doing Pen Pals.
Pen Pals was
COVID.
my first thing with Boxer Tricks, yeah. So it was a year-long attachment, and I wrote Denisha, and yeah.
And how did it manifest? Like, how did she pour out of you as a character? What inspired it initially?
I wanted to write about the mixed race experience when you... And also... everyone thought I was from Preston. Everyone was convinced that Denisha is me. And I still feel really strongly that, even though you've just said all that about grammar school, I still don't think Denisha and I are that similar. But I wanted to talk about the rural experience, because basically the point is I get really frustrated with people when there's this thing about mixed race people not being black enough, or not like, you don't even know this, or like you're acting white. And like, you take someone like Denisha, like, what do you actually want her to do? She lives with her white parents. She lives in Preston.
Yeah.
And that's just how it is for mixed race people. And actually, like, the onus is on her parents. Like, and that was the story of her dad realizing, like, oh my God, am I even equipped to bring up this black girl? Because I thought it was fine just saying, well, you are white, kind of, and I didn't know that you needed to have your food and have a connection to your culture. It's just something I didn't think about. And I think, like, so much of it is put on mixed race people for us to be like, choose a stance right now. And it's like, I can only do what I... And that wasn't my experience, by the way. Like, I know both of my parents, and I'm very tapped into my culture.
Yeah.
I really wanted to just shine a light on the people who don't have that connection, because it can give you an identity crisis. Like, I mean... even being mixed race and being a part of your culture gives you an identity crisis anyway. But when you're not, like, and when you visibly don't look white, it's horrible.
Yeah.
People ask you questions that you can't answer.
Yeah. No, I'm really lucky to be a mixed race person who's not really had that experience, in the sense that, I was getting bullied at school when I was a kid quite badly for the way that I looked, and I didn't really understand that the reason why I had certain features was because I was black. They just made me feel like, I had a weird nose and fat lips and big hair because I was ugly. So I definitely had that thing where I was like, I'm ugly, and really kind of like, that was my internal narrative, really until kind of my mid-20s. But I had a very clear sense of like my identity, because my dad from like when I was very young was like, you're black. He just didn't see it any other way. And then when we moved to America, I really got to know my African American family and kind of grew up in that culture. And so the only really kind of difficulty I had in terms of my identity was actually the British Americanness of it. Am I British or am I American? And like a lot of my cultural references being American, but then a lot of my cultural references being British as well. And like, I think in American English, even though my internal monologue is in an English accent. So like sometimes I'll be struggling to think of a word for something. Like if I'm rushing out the house, I might say to my partner, oh, can you take the trash out of the trash can? Because I won't be able to think of the word for rubbish and rubbish bin. So things like that. So I actually think what's interesting about Denisha as a play is that even if you haven't lived that mixed race confusion of identity experience, most people have lived an experience where they're caught between two identities, one way or another, whether it's national identity or sexual identity, or
absolutely.
And it also explores sexual identity.
And that's what I loved about this play, is that people who weren't mixed race, you know, but were queer or neurodivergent or working class or whatever. It's just a play for anyone who's been in a space where you are the minority. And you just what it's like to be a teenager. You just, all you want to do is fit in. But obviously by the end of it, she realizes that she doesn't have to, and that she's...
And I thought there was something really interesting in the performativeness of fitting in. So, like, you know, she has this boyfriend, and the way that she talks about him is very like, I'm supposed to feel these things.
Yeah, right.
So I'm going to feel these things.
Yeah.
And I thought you handled that so cleverly and with such nuance, and it was so relatable.
Thank you.
So relatable. So what's the future for Denisha then?
Ooh, I'm not sure. I really want it to have another life.
Yeah.
Definitely. I'd love it to have a national tour. I'd love more people to see it.
But first you've got to get through Unhinged.
Yes. I'm not going to lie. Now my brain is on Unhinged and trying to, and like, what's the future for that as well? So it's like, you know, figuring that stuff out.
So let's talk more about Unhinged and what it's about.
Okay. What is it about? It is about Hazel, who thrives in chaos and dysfunction. My amazing friend and collaborator, Erin, encouraged me to do this because I would start sending her voice notes of me just being really depressed and miserable. And she was like, you need to write that down. So I was like, okay. And then she was like, you need to do one person show. And I was like, oh my God, that's crazy. And then I applied for Girl Gang Scratch, and we got it, and I was like, oh my God, we actually have to write something, and then I actually have to share it. And like the first 20 minutes, it's all about Hazel's world and stuff. But then obviously it's like, okay, I need to like add something to this. Like, what else is going on besides like everything going to shit and Hazel trying to juggle it all? What's the problem? And that's how the brother came in, which is ironic because for Pen Pals, that's what it was. It was about a brother-sister relationship and their dynamic. And so I guess that theme has kind of stayed with me.
And kind of talking about sort of the chaos that Hazel experiences in the play, how much of your own experience with ADHD and neurodiversity has kind of filtered into the play?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, naturally it's going to, because like two ADHD women are creating this play. But I do want to clarify that this isn't about me. Like, this is not my story. And I know that's going to be like a huge takeaway from this play, is when you go and watch it, it's a one-woman play.
There's acting jobs that I've taken on in the past where I'm like, oh my God, this character is nothing like me.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to find a way to kind of, you know, way into the character. And by the time I've come to play them or finish playing them, I'm like, oh, this character is actually quite like me, because I've found the things that we connect on. So I think that's a very normal thing, but I also think that audiences have a really hard time differentiating between the actor and the character, and it's something that
and especially with the one person, something about it, like obviously when you write and perform it, how can it not feel and look personal? And there's definitely elements that obviously that Hazel and I, but I'm doing much better than Hazel. Hazel is really struggling. Hazel needs a lot of help, and she's very dysfunctional. And I think that's what was so challenging about our R&D, because it's like, this girl is taking me to places that I don't really want to go anymore. Like, I've worked so hard to get through everything, and she's like, well, that's Hazel's problem, not mine.
Exactly. And you know, maybe Hazel is who you might have been in a, you know, part of the multiverse where you don't have an amazing relationship with your brother, and you don't have lots of, you know, support around you.
Absolutely.
And you
100%.
don't have a diagnosis and tools in order to move through that diagnosis and, you know, play to your strengths when it comes to your neurodiversity. So she, you know, she is a version in a very distant part of the multiverse.
Definitely.
Who, you know, perhaps
and you will see, like, there'll be bits that you'll be like,
that's so Steph.
Yeah. And that's okay.
That's
as
okay.
long as everyone can also recognise, but also that's not Steph.
Yeah. Because I think, you know, there is a part of us that wants to examine who we might have been in other lives and prove that person can still be lovable and compelling to outsiders.
And Hazel is such a polarizing character, and interestingly enough, when we did our R&D and we did our invited sharing, we did like a little feedback session afterwards, and everyone had which is so exciting as a writer, everyone had a different opinion about Hazel.
Wow.
It was just so exciting, you know, and that is what she's like. And that's what I love about this character and getting to play her and write her is like, some people will get on board with her and some people really won't, but that's
like
okay.
She's a real human being.
Yeah, and
great.
I love that. Like, I think that's what's dramatically interesting. Like,
I think that's what it is to create a multifaceted
Denisha
character.
was kind of flawed. Like, you know, what she did to Leonie was awful.
Yeah.
It was really awful. It was naive. It was an accident, but it was still awful.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing. Like, I don't think anybody really truly relates to, identifies with, even likes characters that are too perfect. Nobody wants to watch a character on stage or read a character in a book who wakes up in the morning and is like, oh, life is amazing and I appreciate every single thing about my life. Everything's fantastic and I do no wrong and I have the perfect job and the perfect partner and I'm really happy within myself. Boring. Yeah. Not only are you boring, but you're actually kind of annoying. Yeah. You've managed to be boring and annoying at the same time.
Now I hate myself because my life is nowhere near as good as yours. Yeah. Great.
Or actually, I feel better about myself because at least I'm not as obnoxious as you are. Oh, perfect person. Maybe it's actually okay not being perfect because I wouldn't want to be like you. Yeah, exactly. So I think writing multifaceted characters is a really valuable thing, but that's also going to mean that, you know, members of the audience are going to see certain facets and be like, oh, that triggers me because of an experience I had with somebody who's like that. Or maybe it's even a part of myself that I don't like to look at. And I think being fearless in our writing and making sure that we still put those characters down on the page, especially women, especially female characters, you know, not writing that character and thinking, oh my God, she has to be likable, so maybe she shouldn't make that choice. And maybe she shouldn't articulate this deep, dark fear of hers, because what if people don't like her? And then you start to pull away from that character being truly real and compelling, which is
absolutely
a loss. It really is. So we've got Denisha, we've got Unhinged. I want to talk about another thing that was a really big achievement of yours last summer, which is that you got awarded with DYCP funding from the Arts Council.
Yes, I did. That was brilliant.
Yeah, and so began a journey into children's shows, which I would love for you to speak a bit more about, particularly your trip to Cuba.
Yes, absolutely. So DYCP is called Develop Your Creative Practice, and it's where you get an arts bursary to create something that's different to your creative practice. And I hadn't written for young audiences before, and I'd done an internship with a young theatre company, and they'd asked me to write a play. And when I wrote that play, they loved it, and they were like, we really think you've got a voice for young audiences. And they encouraged me to apply for this fund and to do it. And we did a R&D of the play. So this play is an adaptation of a Jamaican folk tale called Man Crow. And it explores sexuality, gender identity. There's frogs in it.
Yes.
It's really fun and beautiful.
Sign me up.
Yeah, it's really fun and beautiful. And so we did an R&D. We worked with a musician and a puppeteer. And hopefully we're going to develop that further post Unhinged. And then Assitage is a festival for theatre makers and performers, for artists all around the world who make art for young audiences. And I got invited to go to that as a playwright for young audiences, and that was phenomenal. I was in Cuba by myself. This is just like a funny thing that I did because like I just didn't think this. I was like, right, I'm gonna book every show in advance, and I'm gonna put it in my calendar, and I'm gonna be organized. And then when I got there, obviously the time changed, so that none of the things in the calendar made any sense. It would be like, you've got the show at like
1 o'clock
10
in the morning.
PM. Like, that's not right. that was a whole waste of time.
No.
Yeah, so that was funny. And then like, yeah, so I saw theatre from all around the world, because there was, ask me another question, I don't know what else to say about that. It was amazing.
It was amazing. Well, what I want to know about that.
And there was workshops as well.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, which were really cool.
What kind of workshops?
I did one about writing fairy tales, which is really similar to what my play was about, and working with young people. That was really cool. There was a queer workshop that I did, talking about queer characters and how to make sure that we're representing them and platforming them in an honourable way. Yeah, there was loads. Like, there was always something to do every day. I did take a couple of days for the beach because it's what I deserve.
Gotta do that.
Not being in Cuba and not going to the beach.
Of course.
But yeah, it was amazing.
I love that. So did you have an interest in kind of folklore and fairy tales before that trip, or was that what triggered it for you?
Good question. Why did I even adapt that play? Because I wrote the play before I got DYCP.
Yeah, okay.
I'm not sure. It must have been something to do with the internship at the time, that perhaps, because I was just like a trainee, just shadowing their children projects.
Yeah.
And perhaps at some point we were talking about fairy tales, and then I was like, I want to find a Caribbean one. Yeah, maybe it's that. And then my mentor was like, she challenged me. She was like, I want you to write a play. I was like, okay. And I did it really quickly, and she was really impressed. And then it stuck with her, because I think it was like a couple of years later I moved on, I did Playbox and stuff, and then she was like, we want to help you apply for DYCP, like we want to get this play made. So
wow.
So yeah, that was cool.
So the rest of your DYCP is now working through that and trying to
so like finishing writing the play. And then there's also other things, and actually something that I found really challenging as a writer, and because I just hadn't had anything on and I was just like bursting to just get something on, is that fund. It's not like an Arts Council fund. And like my mentor had to explain this to me so many times. The purpose of this fund is not to create anything. Like, no. It's not going to end with the show. It's about developing your creative practice. Yes. So you should be learning. So I did my writers retreat. I'd never done that before. So like spent a week in Wales just writing. It was such a luxury to have that space and the financial aid. She was like, you need to be doing writing courses. You need to be doing workshops. Like, you're supposed to be developing. Whereas I was very much in the, I want something on. Yeah. So like, if I'd had that fun post Denisha, that probably would have been a completely different experience, because there would have been less urgency.
Okay.
Because you know what it's like when you're just like in constant.
You're just desperate to get
You're just in constant pain.
Yeah.
Like,
literally.
Because it's like,
uncomfortable.
That's what like Denisha meant to me, is like, finally, like, people can understand what it is that I'm talking about, and that like I've got something to say. Because for the longest time it's like, oh, you're still doing that thing, you know, like you run into people from your past, it's like, oh, you're still doing that thing, and like, how's that going? And it's like, and you want to say, so it's like, well, and like when you say stuff like, well, I've got DYCP, or I'm on this scheme, they're like, what is it? What is it? Is it on? Like, where can we see it? Can I book a ticket?
Is it tangible?
So you're still doing the thing. So it's like, it's just so frustrating.
Continuing the animal film.
Legit. That's what it did. Denisha made me feel like a legit writer. Like, I've always known I'm a writer.
Yeah.
I've always known I've got something to say, and it's like one of the only things that I can do. It's like my only skill set. But I didn't feel legit until Denisha.
So you know lobsters? I'm sure you know of lobsters. You might not know any lobsters personally.
Why did my head immediately go to the film Lobster?
Because that's the most famous film.
Okay. I was like, okay, we're going there.
But we're not going to that film.
But we're not.
That's not where I'm taking this. But lobsters grow inside their shells. People don't know this. A lot of people don't know this. They grow inside their shells, and so their growth is actually a very private thing that nobody can see until it gets so uncomfortable to be inside their shells that they either burst out and grow a new one, or they'll just die in there. So I almost feel like your journey is like growing and growing and growing kind of behind the scenes. Yeah. And then reaching a point of such discomfort that...
Yeah.
And then here you are in your big new shell that everyone can see.
And that's just because of my external factors of just like being working class, being a black writer, you know, being ADHD, all of these things. It's like, this shit doesn't happen. I don't get these opportunities. No. So yeah, I think to not constantly be fueled by all of the pain and the rejection that comes with this industry of like, if I
and the panic
if I
about
could
money.
be a panic, like like I've been approaching everything in panic and urgency, and it's like you need to just believe that it will happen, even if it takes 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. Just accept that it'll happen and just enjoy it. I've not been enjoying things. I've been like in a state of adrenaline, which is not a good energy to be around.
No, and I do remember thinking when you got that money, that funding, I thought, first of all, I cried because I was like...
It was so nice.
Number one, there is no one who needs this right now more than Steph. No one who deserves it right now, I feel, more than Steph. But also it made me feel like it could maybe happen for me as well. It didn't. I applied for DYCP.
What was your creative practice?
Very sad. I wanted to direct theatre, which is something I'd always wanted to do, and I'd had a bit of a taste of through Box of Tricks, allowing me to direct some little short plays as part of Box Fresh, and I had a real thirst for it. I felt like with my dramaturgy background, my acting background, my writing background, this is something I could be really good at. But I also was really interested in exploring how to make theatre more accessible through, because I've been learning BSL for about 4 years, studying for my next set of exams now. And, you know, I really wanted to find ways to make theatre more accessible for deaf and hard of hearing people, to make it more accessible for blind and visually impaired people of all disabilities, neurodiverse people. So I wanted to spend some time working with access support workers and kind of people who are disability advocates and experts to work out a better understanding of like how we can incorporate creative captioning, how we can incorporate BSL in a really integrated way. And so my whole DYCP was set up around that and around shadowing directors in the industry who I really respect, and I didn't get it, and it was really devastating because I felt like I could do so much good with that, and it just felt like my directing career just died before it even started. So
Gotta
it was very
keep
sad.
going.
It was very
Gotta
sad.
keep going, Karla.
But yeah, you know, as ever, I keep going with other things like writing and acting, and you know, maybe directing isn't going to happen, but there's other things. So yeah, but it is, you know, it's hard that we have one organisation who kind of holds the purse strings and decides who gets to create and who doesn't. So as great as it's been that, you know, you got the DYCP, there are a lot of other people who are probably still really struggling with this ridiculous system that we have to navigate through. And it's especially hard for those of us who are neurodiverse. And, you know, we both had the same access support worker on the DYCP, didn't we? And, you know, I think it's really important for listeners to, you know, obviously we've just told two stories here. One where we had a successful DYCP and one that was unsuccessful and is more of a sad story. But something that I would love for listeners to take away from these two little anecdotes that maybe a lot of listeners don't know about is that you can, if you are neurodiverse or disabled, if you have access support requirements, you can get an access support worker to help you through the process of applying for any Arts Council grant, including the DYCP, and they will pay for it for you. Yeah. So, yeah, that's a really important takeaway.
Definitely.
I think.
There's no way I could have done it without an access worker.
Me neither. But yeah, I mean, it's really amazing to hear how nourishing, I think is the word I'm going to use, it was for you to have that kind of funding and support, you know, through the DYCP.
Yeah, it was like I got to, that's another factor, is that I was working full time, and like, you know, everyone around you who's in the same industry and who are slightly ahead, it's like you can't help but notice that they just don't have the same circumstances. And one of that was huge. It's like I'm working full time. I'm spending my Saturdays and Sundays either applying for writing competitions or I'm trying to write the thing that I want to do. I wasn't feeling creative. I didn't have a social life. So by doing DYCP, I also got to work part time as well. So there's like so many amazing benefits. Yeah.
And this is what...
I don't even know if I would have got to where I am now without DYCP, because it really helped me slow down and just having 2 extra days of like, right now this can be my what we're applying for day, this can be my writing day, this can be my following up with emails day, and just having that time that you just don't get if you don't have access to money and you have to work full time, and I live alone, so it's like everything falls on my responsibility. I don't have a partner, I don't have family that pay for things. Like Steph's paying for everything.
Yeah.
So it's like, that was huge for me, getting that fund.
And this is what people who come from more privileged backgrounds, who have that
Just
huge
take it for
safety net,
granted.
get. They totally take it for granted. They know
like
that
we
if
do
a
not
job
all have
falls
the same
through,
24 hours in a day.
We really don't. You know, they know that if a job falls through, like mum or dad can help them out.
Yeah.
And you know,
Or
a lot of us
even
don't
if
have
like
that.
if someone else is paying your rent, and then you can just concentrate on like little freelance stuff. I'll do like a bit of facilitating that day, and I'll do a bit of writing that day. Like, no, like Steph's got who's paying for the bills? Like, it's just me. It's like, so it's obviously, it's to the point now, like I'm not applying to anything if it's not paid. It's like, I can't afford to do like a writing commission unpaid.
No, absolutely not.
Can't.
And why should you at this point in your career?
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean? And I think there's a lot of like, I wonder sometimes if the gatekeepers are kind of comparing us and going, oh, well, this person said they do it for free. Well, maybe this person can afford to do it for free. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And, you know, a lot of us can't. And a lot of us then have to kind of operate with, we've got very limited time to actually do, you know, pursue our creative pursuit, whatever that might be. What's next for you? You've got Unhinged.
Yeah.
And then the plan after that?
A holiday. That's what's happening next.
Yeah.
It's a holiday.
A holiday. Okay. It sounds like you need
Steph's
one.
having a holiday.
It sounds
I
like
want
you
to
need
lie
one.
down in the sun.
And finally, what would be the ultimate piece of advice that you would give to other emerging theatre makers?
Don't give up. I know that's what everyone says, but don't give up. Believe in yourself. And be consumed in your art. You cannot write for theatre if you're not going to the theatre.
So true. Mm-hmm.
I find what helps me as well is consuming different art helps me creatively. So I'm always reading. I love watching films. Yeah, just keep being creative.
You quite like music as well.
I love music.
I've heard
my God,
a rumour that you're
of
quite
course.
into Beyonce.
Yeah.
Is that a thing?
Yeah, absolutely love music. I like listen to it at least like 22 hours out of the day.
Wow.
But yeah, just keep going. And I think a good one is to like research your favorite artists and like try and follow. I mean, it's hard because so many things have been closed, or like we don't have the same bursaries, or like the same opportunities don't exist anymore. But as much as you can, research your favorite artists and look at their journey and see if there's anything that you can try and do, and get into things like Box of Tricks or like whatever your local theatre company is. Introduce yourself, go for a coffee, stay in the loop, go and watch their stuff. Just try and find an in and just keep going.
Stefanie Reynolds, you have been a fantastic guest. Thank you so much for being on the Box of Tricks PlayMakers podcast.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. You can follow Box of Tricks on Twitter at BOTTC and on Instagram at Box of Tricks Theatre. You can find me at Karla M Sweet on both platforms and on Substack at karlaMarieSweet.substack.com, and you can follow Stefanie on Twitter at Stefanie Reno and Instagram at Stefanie Reynolds _ Thank you so much for listening. I told you this would be chaotic. I warned you all. Thank you.